Okay, so here we are. Um, Welcome to how to stop doing things that no longer serve you, a workshop by the School of Humankind. I'm John Britton. I'm co-founder of School of Humankind. And School of Humankind, we run two free community events every week. Discussions, workshops, interviews. Sometimes once a month we do meditations and so on. And our aim is not to, sometimes we offer very clear, direct, do this, do this, do this, how to do this and whatever. But also we try to engage with complicated questions, and we try to treat you who attend workshops and who watch things online or catch up later on YouTube, with the respect of saying that life is complicated and there aren't always easy answers. This is one of those life is complicated and there aren't always easy answers kinds of workshop. Because if there was an easy way to stop doing things that no longer serve us, we would know about it and we would have stopped millennia ago doing things that no longer serve us. But we don't. We continually do stuff which screws us up and screw other people up, screws the planet up, and generally is not wise. So it would be dishonest of me and patronizing to say, hey, I've got a 4-point checklist, which if you just follow my ideas means you'll never again do anything that doesn't serve you. That would be nonsense. And you know it and I know it. So let's put in a little, warning at the beginning that what I'm going to talk about here is some strategies. It's pretty informal. I don't have any great exercises for you to do. I'm going to talk some strategies to help us be healthier in the choices we make. And you will work out how those strategies do or don't apply to your life. I speak from a very personal place. I'm 60 now, and a significant part of my life has been spent dealing with anxiety. And a significant part of that anxiety has been repetitive thoughts and unhelpful choices. Now, you see, I sort of knew I was anxious, and I can give you some reasons why I was anxious. I can go intergenerational. I was taught anxiety by anxious parents. I can go adolescence. I was bullied badly at school. I can go psychological, to do with, being at times rather oversensitive arty type in a over brutal unarty world. I can name these things, and I can name the things that I want to stop doing. That doesn't stop me doing them. I can name the thoughts I want to stop having. That doesn't stop me having them. So if we approach how to stop doing things that no longer serve you by thinking that the rational, talking, conscious mind just needs to be slightly reordered and then everything will be fine, we're deluding ourselves. However, the rational, conscious mind is all that we've got to work with, so we're going to have to work with it. And what I'm going to talk through today is a series of strategies that we can use in sort of 4 stages, a series of strategies we can use to help us apply healthier choices to our thinking and to our actions. And those things, of course, are intimately related. We don't do stuff unless we first think we're going to do stuff. It may not be conscious thinking. We may be driven by unconscious thoughts, but they are still thoughts. They are still things we're thinking. We're just not aware that we're thinking them. Every action, every movement, every choice begins with the thought. Which brings us to a really important starting point for this journey. If we make all sorts of decisions about what we're going to do, or more importantly, for what we're talking about here, if we make all sorts of decisions about all the things we're going to stop, but we don't deal with the thinking that causes us to do those things, then we are dealing with symptoms, not causes. If you say, I'm not going to eat junk food anymore, but you don't deal with the things that make you want to eat junk food, then even if you stop eating junk food, you will replace that unhealthy habit with probably an equally unhealthy or more unhealthy habit. We must always gently try to move beyond behaviors towards causes of behaviors. And because we never quite know what caused our behavior, we have to take the best guess. All we can ever do is take the best guess. I don't know whether I'm anxious because my mother grew up in extreme poverty. I don't know. I think it's probably quite likely that that's part of it, but I don't know. That's my guess. So we're going to go through 4 little steps or stages or things to think about as we consider how to stop doing things that no longer serve you. And the first of those steps, really clearly, before we can do anything, is we have to notice what we're doing. Really simple. People go, I want to stop doing this. That's just a general statement. If we want to stop doing things that no longer serve us, we need to notice in detail what it is that we're actually doing. Noticing requires quietening our mind and becoming present. If you feel that there are things in your daily life that are obstructing you or blocking you or getting in your way or somehow hurting you, before you try to stop them, quieten your mind and become present. Now, when I train presence, I have a book on presence. It's been at the heart of my work for many decades. But I have 8 principles of presence, and I'm not going to go through all of them now, but 3 of the principles that are particularly useful for us as we observe what we are doing in our lives and try to identify what we want to stop doing. 3 of the principles that are really useful are: 1, have no opinion. In other words, if you're looking at what you're doing and going, I shouldn't be doing that, or that's bad, you're not seeing what you're doing. You are seeing your opinion about what you're doing. Pause before you reach an opinion and simply observe. It's a discipline of stepping away from thinking that you have answers and just letting yourself be present with your reality in this moment. A second principle, which is really useful for us here, is don't be helpful. Sometimes people think that principle is be unhelpful. It's not. The principle is don't be helpful. Don't try to do other people's work for them. That might be emotional work, that might be psychological work, it might be practical work. As you are trying to work out how to reorientate your life, make sure that you are doing what you need to do, not distracting yourself from what you need to do by doing what other people need to do. We all like to be helpful. It makes us feel like we're nice. But it is often a distraction from doing the real work of choosing what needs our attention. The third principle that I want to just drop in here to help us be present and to notice what we're doing is when there's nothing for you to do, do nothing. Be willing, as you face making some choices, as you begin to think, there's things not working in my life, or there's something I need to stop, or whatever, don't leap to a decision. You're not ready to make decisions. You're not ready to choose actions because you haven't spent time noticing what's actually happening. So give yourself space to do nothing. People think doing nothing is a waste of time. No, doing nothing is a really useful use of your time when there's nothing for you to do. If you're not ready to make a decision and you choose to make a decision, you're being very foolish. Don't make a decision until you're ready to make a decision. So my starting point for this journey is notice. Become present. Notice in detail all the habits and all the ways that you fill your time and all the things that are productive for you and the things that are not productive to you. Notice what is no longer serving you. Don't make decisions about it immediately, but just notice what is no longer serving you. And as you begin to identify things going, yeah, it's not this relationship with this person is no longer serving me, but it's this element of this relationship with this person. In other words, as you begin to notice things in detail, or it might be this sort of thinking, or this particular set of thoughts, or whatever, as you begin to notice in detail, there's a set of questions you might want to ask yourself. Well, the first is, what exactly do you want to stop? Not in general, in detail. What exactly do you want to stop? And then you might want to ask yourself, this thing that I'm doing that I want to stop, why am I doing it? I don't mean, why did I start doing it? That's, first of all, unanswerable, and secondly, a slightly easier question. It's a real tough question to ask yourself, this habit that I know that I need and want to stop, what does it buy me? What am I getting by doing it? What part of my self-image does it reinforce? What does it distract me from really having to deal with? What am I buying with this habit? I remember years ago listening to some famous comedian on the radio, Desert Island Discs on Radio 4 in the UK, where they, we're going to maroon you on an island. What records will you take with you? And he said, oh, I couldn't stand it. If I was on my own for more than 2 minutes, I'd take a pistol and blow my brains out. And I went, oh, okay, your entire public persona and all of your comedy is a way to distract you from ever actually having just to look at yourself. I'm not passing judgment. That's okay. That's who he wants to be. He seems to be perfectly happy with it. But it's a useful question. These habits that you say you want to stop, what are they buying you? What will you lose if you stop doing this thing that you say you want to stop? Are you willing to give up what it gives you? What does this habit help you to avoid? So often we do, make choices or do thinking because it helps us avoid doing harder stuff. One of the things that habits help us avoid is doing new stuff or taking responsibility for ourselves and our actions. So these habits that you say you want to stop, what are they buying you? Are you willing to lose what they give you? What do they help you to avoid? And just to give that a little overview, it looks like this. Well, it would do if I got it on the right slide. Stage 1, be present, notice. Ask yourself, what does this habit buy you? Ask yourself, how else can I get what the habit buys me? Ask yourself, what are you avoiding? Ask yourself, what are you ready to give up? And ask yourself, What do you actually want instead of whatever it is that you're willing and wanting to give up? Now, in all of this work where you're listening to where you're noticing and being present, listen to your body. Don't let this just become a talk fest. Your mind saying, I think this and I think that and I'm in control. Your body is wise and will tell you things. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you go, I'm going to stop doing this thing, it does mean I'm going to have to do this other thing. Your body will tell you with fluttering in the stomach, which could be excitement or it could be fear. And energy will come into your body and you'll go, hell yeah, that sounds good. Or you'll go, nah, no, ain't going to happen. This is your body talking to you. And if that sounds too woo, it's your unconscious talking to you via your body. Because your unconscious liberates actions in your body, which your conscious can then read. So this is first stage of our little journey, noticing and questioning. Second stage of our little journey is to challenge your thinking. I want to talk for a moment about what I call junk thinking. I call it junk thinking because it's like junk food. It's addictive, repetitive, gives you a short-term hit, and is profoundly unhealthy. And I'm going to confess that I have struggled my entire life with junk thinking. I still do. I'm much better than I used to be at it. But junk thinking is where you start a process of thought and then you have a conversation with someone in your head, or you go through the same, it's not fair, or you go through the I'm this, or the world is that, and it's blah, 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 blah. And it somehow temporarily makes you feel a little bit better about yourself because you're having a whinge. You're having a little complaint to yourself. You're feeling sorry for yourself. Or you're saying how much better you are than everybody else. I'm smarter than everybody else. They're all stupid. The world is stupid. I'm a better artist. I'm a better scientist. They don't understand me. I'm prettier than everyone else. Whatever it is that you tell yourself, it's junk. It's like a filthy, fat and salt, sugar stuffed burger that makes you go, oh, that's better. But not only half an hour later do you feel hungry and crappy again. Long term, it's going to kill you. Junk thinking. Now, there are neuroscientific explanations for junk thinking. I can't remember which of the many books it is that I've read around, neuroscience and all of these things. But there's a description by one of the scientists I've read of, she says, imagine that you're in a house and way over there, there's a forest. And between you and the forest, there's a field with shoulder high grass. And you want to get somewhere in the forest. So the first day you go, oh, I'm going to plow my way through the grass, and you plow your way through and you get to the forest. And this is the equivalent of when we don't know how to do something, we do it for the first time. Now, the second time, the next day, you look at where you want to go in the forest, and assuming you want to go to roughly the same place, well, you plow through that part that you plowed through yesterday because the grass is already half, knocked out of the way. You don't plow a completely fresh path. You go, oh, I'll just take that path. And then the third day, you go, I'll just take that path. And the fourth day, look, it'd be stupid to take any other path. And in the end, that becomes the only path you can imagine taking through the field. Why would you take any other path? But the problem is, if you keep taking the same path, you keep getting to the same place. And if your thoughts are destructive and you're doing things that you no longer want to be doing, and you keep thinking the same thoughts, you're going to keep ending up doing the same things. And, the mind is, this is how the mind works. The more you think and do something, the more you're likely to think and do something. The mind likes habits. It goes, oh yeah, I can go, I can do this. I don't even have to think about this. I can think about something else. I'll just do. And it plows its way down the habitual path through the field to the forest without ever asking, is this the part of the forest I want to go to? Or ever asking, are these actions that I am, choosing to do actually serving me? We get caught up in the junk thinking. Oh, I'm just going to do this and this and this and this and this. Habitual thinking, unhealthy thinking. So we need to think, we need to notice our thinking. And the questions we asked in part one, what is this thinking buying you? This is a way of really beginning to question why we are choosing to think these thoughts. Again, what is it giving you? What do these thoughts buy you? What does going to that particular part of the forest buy you? And as you begin to observe your thinking like this, you have many powerful tools, but two of the powerful tools that you can work with are reframing some things. In other words, when you go, this isn't fair, to go, is that true? Is it relevant? To ask yourself, are the assumptions that I am making in my thinking actually valid, or could they be seen in another light? If you're sitting there going, this person is really thick and I'm really sick of, talking to this thick person. Is it true? Or are they just as intelligent, but in a different way? This person's always getting at me. Is this true? Or are they, in fact, in their way, trying to be kind and serve you? How might you reframe elements of your thinking? And the second useful tool we have, first is reframe, the second is redirect. To use the metaphor of the house and the field and the forest, sometimes you just need to go, I don't want to go to that part of the forest anymore. I'm just not going there anymore. I'm going to choose a different part of the forest to go to. And I'm going to find a whole new path through this field to get there. It's changing your intention, redirecting your intention. I've got to work because I've got to earn money and I've got to get, rich and, because otherwise I can't afford the new phone. Part of redirecting is going, actually, I don't need a new phone. I know this one's fine. Or I don't need to earn a lot of money. I need to earn enough money to survive, and I need to spend more time painting pictures or whatever. It's choosing to be in a different part of the forest. And we can talk about that in terms of changing our intentions or reimagining our purpose and so on. Now, when you are attempting to challenge junk thinking, you cannot afford the first thought. We're going to come to that in a moment. But just for a moment, here's the second stage. Notice your junk thinking, understand your motivations, reframe part of your thinking, and redirect parts of your thinking. In other words, find new pathways. Still, always, particularly while you're doing this thinking work, think also with the body. Always. So then we come to a third little step. As you begin to make choices and you begin to become more aware both of patterns of thinking and assumptions that you make within your thinking and some of the reasons, your motivations for your thinking, whether they're, ones you like to acknowledge or not, as you begin to become more aware of that, our job is to interrupt our thinking. Not simply to follow that same path every time. And when I say thinking, remember, all of our actions come from thoughts. So when I say interrupt your thinking, I'm also saying interrupt your patterns of behavior. Then they're not different. What triggers certain junk thinking or habitual behaviors or whatever. Because if we begin to notice our trigger points, we can either, if we can, avoid those trigger points, or if we can't, we can be aware that we're likely to get triggered and prepare ourselves, go, yeah, this is going to make me feel this. I'm not going to give in to that. You know, I've just noted 5 areas of trigger points. I'm sure there's many more, but there's emotional triggers. What a particular kind of emotional contexts that tend to lead you towards certain behaviors that you might want to stop, certain choices. There was a time in my life, I've never, I'm deeply fortunate, I've never been an alcoholic. But there have been times in my life where the stress has led me towards drinking too much. And knowing that, I don't tend to do such stressful things these days, but knowing that if I am in a position of stress and I feel myself yearning for a drink, I can go, nah, that's not healthy. Now that's a different thing. If you're an alcoholic, that's a different thing. That's a, an addiction and so on. But it is a situation which I know could trigger me towards certain behaviors. Knowing that, I can avoid those behaviors or at least forewarn myself against the likelihood of those behaviors. So emotional triggers, certain emotional situations might provoke habitual, unuseful behaviors from you. Contexts, by context, I really mean your family or the church if you're religious, or a political group that you're part of, or your work. Contexts that you have to live in. You go, look, I'm perfectly happy in life, but every time I go into work, I behave like a piece of shit and I start shouting at everybody. What's going on? The context is triggering you. Recognizing that it is not you, but it is the context triggering you enables you to change how you respond to that context. Not easy. It's not, hey, let's change. But recognizing the context helps you in the process of breaking habitual responses. Certain people trigger us. Bless her, and she's dead, so it doesn't matter anymore. My mother, who was a woman I respected a huge amount, but was a difficult woman, she could trigger me like no one else. There's me feeling like a screaming toddler at the age of 54 because of things she said. Stop it, stop it. Ah. If certain people trigger you, reframe or redirect. In other words, either go, what is it about this person that's triggering me? Okay, I'll think about it differently, or avoid that person. Certain situations trigger us. It might be, an argument, any argument. I hate argument. I hate arguing, and I dislike any sort of verbal or intellectual or physical violence. It really bothers me. If I find myself feeling criticized, I start to get the triggering, insecurity, all of those things. Certain situations may trigger you. Notice them, and if you can, avoid them. If you can't, prepare yourself to respond mindfully within those situations. And one more thing that is often a trigger is your psychophysical condition. By psychophysical, I simply mean what's happening in your body and mind. It may be hormonal. For some women, not all, of course, some women, the time of the hormonal cycle alters the nature of thinking and reaction. For me, I'm diabetic. When my blood sugar drops, I become anxious and I tend towards anger, which I'm not really an angry person. I don't do anger, but I can feel the anger rising up in me. It's nothing to do with what the world is doing to me. It's because my blood sugar's dropped. So awareness that certain psychophysical states, tiredness is one that so many people don't recognize. Certain psychophysical states will lead you onto the path towards doing the things that you want to stop. Again, help you interrupt the process of doing the stuff that you're trying to avoid doing. This is stage 3 of our little journey, and it looks like that. Be aware of your triggers. What are your emotional triggers? The contexts and situations that trigger you, the people or communities that provoke unhelpful behaviors in you, and the psychophysical conditions that you need to look out for. Be aware when you are about to be or likely to be triggered. Forearmed is forewarned, as the cliche goes. Be aware. And finally, we come to, we've noticed, we've become aware of a situation where we're beginning to learn to interrupt our processes of thinking. And then we come to what I'm calling the 4th stage, which is that we basically, I'm sorry, there's no way around this, but basically we've got to start having a bit of discipline. We need to put in place better habits. It can be small habits. We need to say, I am not going to think that anymore. First thought comes, oh, it's not fair. Oh, shut up. Get over yourself. I'm going to show you, you may know this, but I'm going to show you a tiny bit of a video. I think I am. Am I? Let me just see if I've still got it, or did I actually close this website down? Yeah, this. Let's just see if I can show you this. This is, hold on. Let me try this again. I love technology, don't you? This is a comedian, you might know this, a comedian from the 60s called Bob Newhart. And he had a very famous sketch, which this is it. The setup for the sketch is this. We're starting this video 3 minutes in or 2 minutes in. Setup for the sketch is that he's a psychologist and somebody has come in to his office and said, you know, I'm really afraid of being stuck in boxes, being shut in boxes, you know, buried alive. And he goes, oh, has anyone ever shut you in a box and buried you alive? You go, no. He said, okay, so basically you're claustrophobic. And she says, yeah, I'm claustrophobic. And he says, okay, well, I'm going to give you some therapy. And it goes like this. Oh, hold on. Last, I'm not sure I shared my sound. Hold on. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe let's see. Can you hear this? You can't hear that? Okay. Just a moment. Zoom. Stop share. Share sound. Doof. Share. Okay, so he's just said, okay, Catherine, I'm going to share 2 words with you now.
Very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life.
Well, shall I write them down?
Well, if it makes you comfortable, it's just 2 words. We find most people can remember them.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, here they are.
Stop it!
I'm sorry?
Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T.
So, what are you saying?
You know, it's funny. I say two simple words, and I cannot tell you the amount of people who say exactly the same thing you're saying.
That's Bob Newhart. I once talking to a therapist who came to one of my workshops, and she said she wasn't allowed to say it in public, but she thinks that's brilliant advice. She thinks it's just brilliant. Because in the end, if we are going to stop doing things that no longer serve us, there comes a point where we just have to stop it. We will fail and we will forgive ourselves, and then we will try again to stop it. And that last line of the clip that I just showed is really important. He says, I give you two simple words, and you have no idea how many people say, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by stop it? It means stop it. We complicate things. But what does that actually, what does that actually entail? What it entails is no longer doing it. It entails, after all the preparation of noticing and so on, creating the context and making the choice to stop doing the thing that no longer serves us. Now, that clip is funny. It's not useful for me to say to somebody, stop doing that. That's something that we have to say to ourselves. That's something in the end where we go, these things, or this thing that I want to stop doing, I'm going to stop it. And if you resent that and you rebel against that, you have to ask yourself, why am I afraid to stop it? What am I afraid of losing? What is it buying me? We're right back to the beginning of the process of saying, what are the motivations, the deeper motivations you have for not stopping what you're doing? We stop things by creating small, healthy habits. Tiny little habit for me. I can get distracted. I try to concentrate, but I get distracted. I'm working at my desk often, and often when I'm writing, I have, the tabs open on Firefox and so on. Not having Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook tabs open and not having my email open means I don't get pinged, which means I concentrate longer. It's a tiny little shift of habit. What little shifts of habit can you make that will help you not get triggered into doing the things you're trying not to do? Be patient with yourself. Maximize your psychophysical resilience, which is a posh way of saying eat well, sleep well, hang out with your mates, and have a good laugh from time to time. Really, there are few things healthier. I would add one more in as somebody who is passionate about creativity. Spend some time each day drawing or writing or dancing or singing or playing a musical instrument or talking to trees. I like talking to trees. They give me very intelligent replies a lot of the time. And finally, if you're trying to stop things that no longer serve you and you fall off your horse, get back on your horse. The fourth stage that we were looking at, you can't afford the first thought. If you want to stop eating McDonald's, it is not useful to start by going to McDonald's and saying, oh yeah, but I'll just have a salad. You're making life really hard for yourself. Don't do the first thing. Establish small, sustainable habits. Notice and break unhelpful existing habits. Avoid unhelpful situations. Maximize your health and resilience. and be patient. Always be patient. Always be willing to reach out for professional help, whether that's therapeutic help or coaching or mentorship, or, you know, ask for a support group of people. If there's a load of you who are all trying to stop doing things like, stop being so unhealthy and get fit, go to support groups, whatever it is, gardeners clubs, book clubs, whatever. We are born to be social creatures. So reach out and be social. So here's my little journey. Notice exactly what it is that you want. Ask yourself why you are doing those things. Notice the thinking patterns that cause you to do these things and interrupt them. Be aware of the things that trigger you towards unhelpful behaviors and either avoid those triggers or be forearmed against them. And then establish habits that serve you and get tough. Stop it. Because in the end, however much we reach out for support and help, and, I encourage everybody, I've been, reached out for therapeutic help over the years at one time or another. And I have friends and coaches and things like that who help me. But in the end, only you get to make the choice. So how do we stop doing things that no longer serve us? We stop doing them. If only things were that simple, huh? That's all I have for you. I don't know whether anyone wants to respond or question. I've realized I've run up to time, and I know, Angela, you might have to rush off on a family obligation.
I was just going to say it's so hard to break those habits, the ones that, you've plowed that pathway,
Mm,
and it's just being really conscious about changing that path. That's
yeah.
so tough. But your questions are so, I don't know. It's like they're almost the ones they're uncomfortable to ask yourself.
Oh,
They're the
hell
ones that
yes.
are like, what is this doing for me? And then you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, oh, this is actually feeding maybe something you don't want to feed,
Mm,
like your ego or whatever.
mhm.
And those are
And the big one in that, I think, yeah, I think it's really uncomfortable. But I think a big one in that is if I stay stuck, I don't have to risk the failure of starting something new.
yeah.
People, and I know this has absolutely been a driver for me as someone who's always been, a little bit insecure and so on. Always been a driver for me. If I'm stuck, I don't have to go, hell no, I'm going to do this and risk falling flat on my face. So it's really tough, those questions, which is why I say be gentle and be patient, and reach out for help. Always reach out for help. I mean, we think right back to traditional tribes and traditional communities. Whenever people were facing tough stuff, they always reached out for help. This modern idea that somehow we've got to all do it for ourselves, it's not a nonsense. It's not human. We are born to reach out to other people for help. But yeah, I agree, Angela. I think it's really tough, these questions.
But thank you. It was very lots of great tips.
Well, I hope there's something useful in there and that whatever you're trying to stop, it'll never happen again.
I'm just going to stop it.
Just like that. I do love that sketch. I mean, it's very probably causes huge amounts of controversy now among people and whatever, but so what?
Well, and it's always easier to tell someone else to stop it.
Oh, yes. You know what you should do? You should do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. We are very good at giving advice to other people. We are very poor at following our own advice much of the time. As a coach, I know this. So I will wrap this up. If you want to know more of the School of Humankind, visit our website, www.schoolofhumankind.com, and find out a little bit more about an FGL. What's an FGL? Well, all will be revealed in a week or two. Until then, you'll just have to make up your own answers. But thank you for being here this evening.